AITA for exposing the truth instead of saving my dad after he disinherited me? My name is Rachel, and this is the story of how I understood that sometimes the truth is the only defense you have left when someone decides to build your entire life on a lie. Growing up in a politician's house teaches you very early on to live with emptiness. We lived in a large home in a gated community in an affluent suburb of Los Angeles, with security at the entrance, a dining room that could seat 12 people, and plenty of extra rooms. There were so few of us inside. And even so, I almost always felt like I was in the way. After my mom's death, my dad threw himself entirely into his work. For 2 years he was absent in the worst possible way. He was still living under the same roof, yes, but emotionally he was as far away from me as if he had moved to another country. "Your dad is on TV today, Rachel," Carol, the nanny who practically raised me, would say as she turned on the living room screen. I would get close and press my hands against the television as if I could actually touch him. That was how I saw him most of the time back then, behind a screen talking to strangers with a warmth that I no longer received. If it had not been for my grandma Evelyn, I do not know what would have become of me. She came to see me almost every day. She would arrive with freshly baked cookies, homemade food, and stories about when my dad was a boy running around the neighborhood with scraped knees and his shirt untucked. With her, at least the house stopped feeling so cold. I was 6 years old when everything changed. One night, my dad came home with an energy I had not seen in him for a very long time. "Rachel, come here. I want to introduce you to someone very special." That was how Nicole entered our lives. She was tall, elegant, always impeccable. She had a perfect smile for photos, for dinners, for events, but it never reached her eyes. I stood in front of her in my pajamas with messy hair hugging a stuffed animal. And even so, I remember something inside me went on high alert. The first few months were not that bad. Nicole barely paid attention to me, and that seemed like a blessing to me. I had my room, my bathroom, a small space where I did my homework and took refuge. Carol was still with me, and my grandma Evelyn did not stop visiting. Thanks to them, I could spend entire days without really talking to Nicole, but I started to notice things. Her smile would vanish from her face the moment my dad left the room. She organized more than one lunch with her friends on the exact same day as my school festivals, my piano recitals, or anything important to me. As a result, my dad always ended up having to choose, and he always chose to accompany her. "Do not take it personally, my sweet girl," my grandma Evelyn would tell me. "Your dad is deep into the campaign. Sometimes not even he realizes what he is missing." I tried to understand, I really tried, but it is not easy to not take it personally when you find out about your own dad's life through interviews, news articles, and internet videos, when your stepmother's shopping matters more than your grades. When you get used to eating dinner alone while the entire country applauds a man who does not even know what grade his daughter is in. High school changed things a little. Suddenly, my dad started to take more of an interest in my future. Maybe because his advisors told him that talking about education made him look relatable. Maybe because I was finally growing up and he felt guilty. I do not know. The only certain thing is that for the first time in years he started asking me what I wanted to study. "You can get into Stanford, UCLA, or even try for the Ivy League if you want," he told me one night, surprising me because for a change he was actually having dinner at home. "With your grades you can choose. I will take care of everything." I almost lost my breath. Nicole dropped her fork against her plate with a sharp clatter. I did not say anything, nor did I dare to get too excited, but I had a hard time sleeping that night. Then came my 16th birthday. I went downstairs that morning and saw a new Mercedes parked outside with a huge bow. My dad was smiling like a little kid. "Happy birthday, daughter," he said, waving the keys in front of me. "What do you think?" I hugged him so hard I surely wrinkled his suit jacket. For a few seconds I felt like I had the dad my grandma described back. The man who had once laughed, gotten dirty, and known how to put his family above everything else. Nicole's voice cut through that moment. "A Mercedes, Jonathan. Really, for a 16-year-old girl?" I did not turn around, but I felt her gaze fixed on my back. I heard them arguing that night. The walls of that house were thick, but not that thick. "You are turning her into exactly what people criticize us for," Nicole said. "A spoiled, privileged girl with no idea of the real world. She is my daughter, Nicole. I have already missed too many things. And how will it look when she crashes that car? Or when her little friends get her into trouble?" Have you thought about the campaign? From that day on, Nicole made it her personal mission to save me from myself, as she put it. Every time my dad talked about college, Nicole mentioned some story about rich kids who lost their way partying. If I needed money for books, materials, or anything else, she questioned every expense with a fake sweetness that made my blood boil. "Rachel, tell everyone the grade you got in chemistry," she would say when we had guests. "What a shame with all the resources your dad has at his disposal." Meanwhile, her own expenses were absurd. Designer bags worth thousands of dollars, spa weekends, pointless remodeling, new furniture for rooms nobody used. "I feel so lonely when Jonathan leaves," she would tell my dad with a pitiful voice. "Shopping is the only thing that distracts me." Furthermore, Nicole gradually took over the administration of the house. She supervised the staff, managed payments, decided on purchases, and eventually she was even the one keeping the closest eye on the safe in the home office. My dad allowed it all because he was home less and less, and because trusting her seemed easier than checking up on things. I tried to stay out of it, but Nicole never missed a chance. "There are people who only know how to ask and ask," she would say out loud when she had friends over, "and they do not even know how to be grateful." She always looked at me when she said it. One day I got tired of it. It was during one of her lunches. She had been throwing hints at me all afternoon, one after another, until my patience ran out. "At least I am not the one emptying his wallet with absurd purchases," I told her. The table went dead silent. Nicole turned red. That night my dad called me into his office. "Nicole says you humiliated her in front of her friends today." I stayed quiet. "You have to try harder, Rachel. She is doing everything she can to be a mother to you." I wanted to scream no, that she had never wanted to be one, that it was all an act. But I kept it to myself. I nodded, went up to my room, and from that day on I started to disappear inside my own house. I ate up there. I went down to the kitchen when I knew Nicole was not around, and I studied more than ever. I kept telling myself that as soon as I could, I would go far, very far away. That winter, some friends organized a weekend trip to Big Bear to ride the mountain bike trails and spend 2 days away. It surprised me that Nicole agreed so quickly when I asked for permission. My dad was away for work again. "Here is for your expenses," she told me, making a transfer and handing me some cash on top of it. "But I am asking you one thing, Rachel, no showing off. We do not need people saying the politician's daughter went out and made a scene with her friends." We left at dawn to avoid the morning rush hour and the crowded freeways. The morning we arrived dawned clear and bright, with that slight chill that cuts a little but feels nice. I had been going to Big Bear for years. I liked that route because out there, among trees, slopes, and damp earth, I felt something I could not find anywhere else. Freedom, silence, peace. The first descents were perfect. The wind hit my face, my hands were firm on the handlebars, my body was relaxed. For a few hours, Nicole, the political events, the stairs, and the competition for my dad's attention did not exist. It was just me and the trail. And then it happened. There are still nights when that fall flashes completely through my head. I was going down a section I already knew. I was going fast, yes, but not recklessly. Something went wrong in a fraction of a second. The tire slipped, or I hit a rock wrong, or I lost my balance on a route. Even today I do not know exactly what it was. All I remember is that the world started spinning. Sky, dirt, impact, air, pain. More dirt, more pain. When everything stopped, the first thing I felt was intense pain in my legs. I tried to move and could not. I heard voices approaching, footsteps, someone kneeling next to me. "Do not move, the paramedics are coming." I breathed as best as I could, my vision blurry, hearing disjointed words, possible fractures, urgent transport, hospital. In the ambulance, when they finally gave me something for the pain, I took out my phone with trembling hands. My dad would know what to do. My dad would help me. He did not answer. I dialed again, nothing. With a desperation that squeezed my chest, I called Nicole. "What do you want?" she answered with a dryness that froze me. "Nicole, I had an accident. I am in the ambulance." "Of course you had an accident," she replied, and her voice turned sharp, dismissive. "I knew you were going to pull something like this. Stealing money was not enough for you. Now you are also going to make your dad look ridiculous with an accident like this." I was left speechless. What? No, I was not doing anything wrong. I fell. Keep your lies to yourself and do not call back. She hung up. I kept staring at the screen, understanding nothing. Stealing money. What was she talking about? We are almost there, the paramedic told me calmly. Is there anyone else we can call? I gave him my Grandma Evelyn's number. The following hours were a blur of x-rays, doctors, painkillers, questions, and cold lights. I checked my phone over and over, hoping my dad would return my calls. He had to have seen the messages. He had to know I was hurt. He did not call. The nurses were kind. They tucked me in, spoke to me slowly, and brought me Jell-O and water. But when night fell and I was left alone in that hospital room listening to monitors and distant footsteps, I felt an abandonment so strong that it almost took my breath away more than the pain in my legs. I woke up the next morning with light streaming through the window, and my Grandma Evelyn's perfume filling the room. For a second, I thought everything was going to be all right until I saw her. She looked more tired, older, sadder than I remembered. Her hands were clasped tightly together, as if she were holding back something massive. Grandma, what is wrong? Is my dad coming? She sat next to me slowly. Rachel, your dad called me last night. He is very angry. Why? My grandma swallowed hard. He says you put his entire image at risk, that you took money from the house, that you were out of control with your friends, and that you got into the accident in that condition. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. That is not true. None of that is true. I was just riding the trail. You know I have always done that. I know, my little girl. Of course I know. Then explain it to him. My grandma squeezed my hand. I already tried. But Nicole was the first one to speak with him. She told him a large amount of cash was missing from the office safe, and that you were out of control. Your dad was out of town with campaign people all over him, and he got carried away by what she put in front of him. The room started spinning. He wants you to go to my house when you are discharged, my grandma continued with effort. He says right now he is too disappointed to come see you. My own dad believed I was a thief. He had not even come to the hospital. He did not even want to listen to me. But you know me, I told her, crying. You know I would not do that. I know, sweetheart. And we are going to figure out how to fix this. I spent the next few hours trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so fast. My legs hurt, yes, but my chest hurt more. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my dad smiling at me on the day of the Mercedes, looking proud, and I could not fathom at what point that image had turned into this. Then the door opened and Nicole walked in. A nurse was checking my IV. Nicole took the opportunity and put on her show. Oh, my poor girl, she said, stroking my hand with fake delicacy. What a terrible thing. You must be going through an awful time. The nurse smiled at her approvingly. It is so good she has a family watching over her. I wanted to tell her that this woman was precisely the reason my dad was not there, but I stayed still, watching, learning. As soon as the nurse left and her footsteps faded down the hall, something pushed me to move my hand toward my phone. Years ago, I had learned to trust that gut feeling when it came to Nicole. I opened the voice recorder and left it running next to the bed. And then I saw her change. Her face hardened. The smile vanished. She sat on the edge of the bed with a frightening calmness. You have no idea how long I waited for this moment, she said. I looked at her without speaking. What are you talking about? She laughed. But it was not her social giggle, it was something else, harder, crueler. Really, you still do not get it. Your dad has already decided what kind of daughter he believes he has. My throat felt dry. Was it you? You told him that. Of course it was me. Who else was going to open his eyes? She leaned a bit closer to me. Her perfume turned my stomach. I told him money was missing from the safe. Several $1,000s. I told him you had been spiraling out of control. I told him you got into trouble with your friends, and that you got into an accident, and he believed me. He will not believe you forever. He already believes you less than me, she said with a calm that terrified me. That is the only thing that matters. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. No more paid college, Rachel. No more support, and if it suits me, I will also pull every string so you do not see a single dime from this family. Tears were already running down my face. Why are you doing this? Nicole looked at me with a dark weariness, as if she had finally decided to drop the act. Because you were always in the way. You were always the reminder of the other woman, the first wife's daughter, the girl he looked at with guilt. And I got tired of sharing. I tried to sit up, but the pain doubled me over. I am going to recover, I told her. The doctor said that with physical therapy I can be fine. Nicole looked me up and down. You will be lucky if you walk like before again. Although, come to think of it, you will not even need that car anymore. Why would someone like you want a Mercedes? I heard her walk toward the door. Accept it. You have nothing left. No dad, no money, no future. You only have your grandma left. And you will barely be able to get by with that. She walked out and closed the door. I stayed motionless for a moment. Then I grabbed the phone with shaking hands and stopped the recording. I hit play. I heard her voice, every word, every confession, it was all there. When I was discharged, I did not go back to the house in Calabasas. I went to live with my grandma Evelyn in her cozy home in Pasadena. Her house was not big or luxurious or quiet. It had old furniture, photos everywhere, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and a kitchen where there always seemed to be something warm waiting for me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in a home. The recovery was incredibly hard. Physical therapy several times a week, constant pain, endless exercises, learning to put weight on my feet again, taking a step again. Then another good days when I ended up crying out of pure frustration. My grandma was with me through every single one. She took me to appointments, waited for hours on end, helped me up and down stairs, held me up when the pain defeated me, and celebrated tiny milestones as if they were massive triumphs. Almost a year went by between hospitals, therapies, online classes, and exhausting commutes between Pasadena and the places where I was treated. Between one session and another, I clung to school. My computer became my classroom, homework, presentations, exercises, video calls, exams. There were days when I could barely get out of bed, but I still logged on. I was not going to give Nicole the pleasure of seeing me defeated. The end of high school arrived, and despite everything, my grades held up. Acceptance letters and emails started coming in, some from universities here, some from abroad, and yes, also Yale, which remained my dream ever since that night my dad told me the world was open to me. With trembling hands, I dialed his number. It had been a year since the accident, a whole year without seeing me, without hearing from me, without checking on me. "Hello, Dad," I said, and my own voice sounded small to me. "It is me." There was a cold silence. "I told you not to call me. Just listen to me, please. I got accepted. I got into Yale. Did not even take a second. I am not paying for someone who betrayed this family like that. Do not call again." He hung up. I just stared at the phone in my hand. The recording from the hospital was saved. I could have sent it to him right then. I could have destroyed Nicole's lie with a single voice note. I did not do it. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was pain. Maybe I realized in that moment that a father who was capable of believing the worst of me without listening to me, and of leaving me alone in a hospital, did not deserve me begging him for anything. "That money is not going to define me," I told my grandma that night. "I will find another way." And I let that first admission slip away. It hurt me like few things ever have, but I let it go. I got a job at a coffee shop. Then I picked up afternoon shifts at a bookstore. I learned to stretch my money, to save, to navigate the world on my own, to not depend on anyone. What I saved up was not enough to pay for a university like that. It was to support myself, to cover paperwork, to never be left without a way out if someone else decided to close a door on me. From time to time, I would see my dad on the news, in interviews, on campaigns, talking about honesty, commitment, family. At first it hurt, then it hurt less and less. 3 years went by like this, 3 years of waking up early, working, studying when I could, doing the math, saving every dollar. My grandma helped me with what she could. She even tried to sell some old jewelry she had kept since before I was born. "No, Grandma," I told her. "Not that. I want to help you. You already help me every day." One night I was counting my savings at the kitchen table, and she smiled at me. "You should feel very proud of yourself." I looked at her and realized that I did. The little girl who lived waiting for her dad to look her way was no longer there. Someone stronger had taken her place. Someone who had learned to stand on her own 2 feet. One day while I was wiping down tables at the coffee shop, my phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost never answered those calls, but something made me accept it. "Hello, Rachel, darling," said a sweet, cloying, unmistakable voice. I felt my whole body tense up. "Nicole, what a pleasure to hear your voice. What do you want? Is that how you speak to me after I call you with such a good opportunity?" I sat down abruptly. My legs still got tired when I spent too much time standing. "I am not interested in anything from you." "Oh, you will be interested. Your dad has a major campaign coming up and his team had an excellent idea. They want to reinforce the theme of family values. They are thinking about interviews, photos, maybe an appearance by you. It would be very touching. The daughter who reunites with her dad. The family that overcomes differences. People love that." I stayed silent for a moment. 3 years. 3 years of abandonment, work, pain, bills, rebuilding, and now they wanted me to come out and say we were a happy family. "You cannot be serious." "I am very serious. You would say that your dad has always supported you, that he has watched over you, that we are a close family. Nothing complicated. An interview, a couple of statements, and everyone is happy." I almost laughed, but out of disbelief. "Are you crazy? Why would I do that?" Her voice hardened. "Because if you do not cooperate, forget about any future help. And do not forget that I can still convince your dad to report the theft and bring back that story. I never stole anything. You took that money. Your word against mine," she said with an unbearable calmness. "Who do you think they are going to believe? The wife of a respected politician, or the troubled daughter, who got into an accident under those circumstances?" Something inside me finally snapped. "Leave me alone, Nicole." I hung up on her. I stared at the screen for quite a while. Then I got to my grandma's house, pulled out my laptop, opened the folder where I had saved everything, and sat there listening to the recordings again. The one from the hospital, the call from that day. I also had old messages, screenshots, things I had been saving out of pure instinct. 3 years ago I had decided to stay quiet and move on with my life, not out of cowardice, but because I did not want to keep begging for a place in a family that had let go of my hand. But this was no longer dignified silence. This was allowing them to keep using my name, my story, and my pain as if they were part of a strategy. I opened my social media. I started writing. For 3 years I stayed quiet about what really happened. Not today. I attached the audio files, provided context, explained the accident, the lies, the money, the abandonment. I added screenshots of messages. I read everything 3 times. My finger hovered over the screen for a second. Then I hit publish. I had no idea of what I had just unleashed. Within hours, the post became impossible to ignore. By the next day, it was everywhere. News portals, shows, columns, videos, people giving their opinions, people sharing. The phone would not stop ringing. "We want to invite you to tell your story. Can we get an interview? This could seriously affect your dad's campaign. Would you like to comment?" I told everyone no. It was not about revenge anymore. I did not even feel the satisfaction I had imagined at seeing how my dad's public image began to crumble. All I felt was a dry sadness, as if all that truth coming out had wiped away a part of me as well. A week later he called me. Not Nicole, not an assistant. Him. "Can we meet?" he asked me. His voice sounded strange, tired, less polished, more human. "Yes." We agreed on a quiet coffee shop on the other side of the city. I crossed half of Los Angeles to get there, and the entire way I felt my heart squeezing. When I walked in, I almost did not recognize him. The flawless politician, with the perfect suit and measured smile, was gone. I saw an exhausted man with a loose tie, defeated shoulders, and the face of someone who had not slept in days. "Rachel," he said, standing up. I sat across from him. "I think the beginning would be good," I told him before he started. He looked down, then took a deep breath. "I listened to everything, the recordings, the call, everything. I have been listening to them over and over for days, trying to understand how I could be so blind." I said nothing. "I failed you," he said, and his voice broke. "Not just after the accident, from way before. I became obsessed with my career, with my image, with maintaining a life that looked perfect. And through all of that, I left you alone." I saw him cry for the first time in my life. After listening to the audios, I checked things I never should have left in anyone else's hands, he continued. I spoke with the accountant, checked transactions, dates, messages. I confronted her. First she lied, then she contradicted herself, and when she saw she could no longer maintain any of it, she ended up admitting she made up the theft and everything else. She also admitted she had been pushing us apart for years. His hands were shaking. Can you forgive me? I was crying by then too. I missed you so much, I told him, so much. We stood up almost at the same time and hugged right there in the middle of the coffee shop. It was not a pretty or neat hug. It was one of those hugs that arrive late, loaded with entire years, with guilt, with tears, with things that were broken, and with others that against all odds were alive. Later, he told me he had filed for divorce, that his lawyers were already handling the proceedings, that he wanted to help me rebuild what he himself had let fall apart. I want to take responsibility, he told me. Not just pay for things and leave it at that. I want to be present. I want to repair what can actually be repaired. And he did not just stick to words. In the weeks that followed, he accompanied me to redo paperwork, to review study options, to talk to academic advisors, to organize pending tasks that I had been putting off out of sheer exhaustion. He started calling me, seeing me, having uncomfortable conversations without running away from them. It did not erase anything, but at least he was not hiding anymore. I want to help you with college, he told me one afternoon. Whichever one you want. It does not erase what I did, I know, but I want to do the right thing even if it is late. Yale is still my dream, I confessed, but not like before. I let the first one go. I would have to apply again. I would have to look into scholarships, financial aid, everything. He smiled then. A sad but genuine smile. Then we will do it right this time. That same night I posted something else, but this time it was not to sink anyone. I told the full story, not just Nicole's manipulation, but also the fact that my dad had acknowledged his mistake. He had stopped hiding behind his public image and had decided to face things head on. To many people's surprise, the public reacted better to that than to any of his speeches. Seeing a man admit he had failed as a father, and that he was trying to repair the damage seemed more believable to them than any phrase written by advisors. The following months were different, not perfect, different. I put my admissions process back together from scratch. I gathered paperwork, updated essays, requested recommendations, reviewed financial aid options, and worked on everything I was missing with a clarity I had not had at the age of 18. This time I was not waiting for someone to rescue me, this time I was choosing. When the response arrived and I saw my name on the screen again, I froze. Then I sat down and cried. I had gotten in again, and this time I actually had a way to make it a reality with financial support, aid, and for the first time in years, a father willing to back up with actions what he said with words. Months later, I moved into my dorm. My dad carried boxes, put things together, asked me silly practical questions just to drag out the moment. The way dads do when they do not want to accept that their daughter is truly leaving. My grandma Evelyn cried while smoothing my sheets, as if I were still 10 years old. The last thing I heard about Nicole was that she had gone to live on her own with what she received from the divorce settlement. I never saw her again, and honestly I do not miss her. Sometimes I think about everything that happened and I realize that healing does not always look pretty, it does not always happen in silence, it does not always come with immediate forgiveness or neat conversations. Sometimes healing is tearing down the fake version of your life in front of everyone. Sometimes it is letting an uncomfortable truth shatter what was already badly built. Sometimes only after that is there room to start over. Today I am studying political science, which has some irony to it, I know. But after everything I lived through, it became clear to me that politics should not have to be at odds with the truth. And my dad, as incredible as it seems, won the next election. He did not win it by pretending to be perfect. He won it after showing himself as someone who made mistakes. He fell and decided to answer for what he did. They say the truth sets you free. I believe sometimes it does something more. Sometimes the truth not only gets you out of the lie, sometimes it brings you back home. Comment. This story really stayed with me, you guys. I wanted to share a few thoughts with you straight from the heart. Standing up for your self-worth is one of the bravest things you can do. Setting healthy boundaries is an important way to protect your peace. Healing doesn't always look neat, but it's worth every step. Taking responsibility, even when it's late, shows real character. Sometimes the best thing you can do is choose your peace over drama. Be gentle with yourself as you walk through your own healing process. Never underestimate the power of your own voice and your truth. I hope this reminds you to value yourself and build a life that feels right for you. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.